Thank you for being with us today. Thank you. Appreciate you coming today. And, well, we just want to bless each and one of you today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for all that you've done. And thank you again and again and again. We won't be with you but so long because we know we have to get up out of here. And Miss Alice over there is waiting for us to close up. And first, we'd like to thank the speakers that came before us today and appreciate the messages that were brought forth. And it's been wonderful, so far so good. We thank the Public Library for extending this facility to us today to use here, even though the library was closed, but we're going to get through that too also. But today, we just come to talk about healing for the community. We're talking about togetherness for the healing of the community and how we need to come together just to share, just to come together. And this is the first time that we've had this type of a program, whereas we had the politicians, clergy, educators, business people, homeowners, bankers, law enforcement, justice system, even the homeless to come to share, to break bread, and just to present their ideas and comment as to what can be done to heal and to help the community, because we need healing. So much is going on in our lives, and why wait till something go wrong before then we can do something about it? Why wait until a disaster or something comes in? We have to go downtown and protest and do all of those things, whereas we should be on one accord. Everybody know what is needed. Put everything on the table, and then little by little, it become a healing for our community. But as I said, I don't want to get ahead of myself because we won't be here, won't be with you but so long, because we know that the time is drawing near. So, at first, I would like to ask, how many of you have heard the statement, could have, would have, should have? Yes, I know, because I don't want to feel like I'm the only person who has been to that place, whereas my mistakes, I've done things, and, like, well, what happened? What could have happened? What should have happened? But then again, as they said before, we like to do this in a cyber way, because on the invitation, my bio says that I've been speaking for 14 years or so, but my speaking has really started long before then. And as we go before this, talking about how my bio and things that's happening, at first, I keep forgetting my manners. Yeah, I keep forgetting my manners. I'm Brother Michael Jones, an inspirational speaker of the gospel, bringing you a message of inspiration, encouragement, and information. So, as my bio says, my journey started a long time ago. And as we do cyberism, we will, delete, compress, make a short version, and just make it so that we will do quick, fast, and in a hurry, so to speak. So here we go before you today, and thank you again, as I said before, for being with us, and thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for coming in this day, in this hour. So my journey to the summit began a long time ago when I was a baby down in Middle Tennessee, as my family worked and lived on a farm called the Milky Way Farm, owned by the Milky Way Candy Company. Yes, the Milky Way Candy Company had a big farm down in Tennessee, and my parents worked there. It was one of the many workers on the farm. So, as they told me, I decided to take a trip one day. You know how they take all of the babies and the little kids, they put them at the end of the field on the pallet or whatever, and it was supposed to be sleep, but I guess I didn't feel like sleeping that day. So I crawled out into the highway. And as they told me that the lady from the Milky Way farm, the owner, came and picked me up. I stopped the Greyhound bus and all of the traffic going either direction. So that was my big moment, I guess, in life. You know what I mean? So therefore, as the lady took me to my mother, and for a while, I guess my mother and father didn't like each other or whatever. So I got to be with my other grandparents, which had a farm, and my sister and I lived there on this other farm. And my grandparents had a structured life. They didn't play. They were the type of people that would teach you how to do something, raise you up, clothe you, feed you, but they seemed to didn't have that love, that really, how you saw that, caring and patting you on the back and playing with you and all that stuff. They were serious people. And if you got out of line, my grandmother usually was the disciplinarian. She always say, go get me a switch. So now I am out there in the woods, because we live, like I say, in the country, and plenty of trees around. And I would take a tree, switch or whatever, and I would strike another tree and see how long it would last. If it lasts a long time, nope, can't use that one. If it lasts too short, can't use that one because she'll send you back and get another one. So I guess you have the psychological about how many lashes, how many licks it would take to punish a person. So therefore, that was one of the dealings that I had to deal with a long time ago as a child growing up. But my grandfather, as he was teaching us how to do farm life, do things, he never accepted the fact of just getting by. And I would guess I understood that on this just getting by, it was a better thing to do because as a farmer, you didn't just get by. You wanted to produce a better harvest. You wanted to do better and more because the more you produce, the more you could take to the market and the more money you would get. So that was the basic of not just getting by with something. So therefore, we had a strong work ethics. And I'm glad of that because it was just a point of do the best you can always. And if you can't do the best you can, do even better. So that's one of my growing up things that came about. I was also going to school. Now, in my school, a lot of you might know or heard of the one-room schoolhouse. Yes, up until the 8th grade, they had one teacher teaching all of the grades from 1 to 8th grade. After the 8th grade, you would go to town for the high school. But just so happened, and I came to the 8th grade, they started busing us to the city to go to school. And therefore, and this teacher would just so happen to be a friend of my mother. Wow. So she had a special interest in the children, the crook children. So therefore, there'll come another time whereas you didn't play around, especially us. So that was another discipline. So she would say, whatever you do, if she thought she heard you do something, and if she knew one of us, we would get a licking. That's all it is to it. And she demanded that we study harder. She demanded our grades was always being good. She demanded us to work more and more and more. So therefore, we read, we studied. So I guess when she and my mother got together, or however, every time my mother came home, there was this teacher. Wow. Bad enough you see this woman in regular school days, but then here come holidays of vacation time, and my mother come home. Look who would come up, this teacher. But I got over that. But anyway, she would always give a report, and that report had always got to be good. if she sent a note home, even after she jacked us up, she would send a note home, and guess what? Another jacking up came about. So therefore, we learned how to respect authority. We learned how to respect each other and respect the position that we had and we was in. Study, learn, and do best you can at all times. So therefore, we had this thing going that we have to do the best we can. Then, after a while, it was, like I say, went to high school. Now, in high school, if you was in the country or lived in the country, the boys had to learn farming. Now, I didn't want to learn anything about farming. I just left the farm. I'm on the farm, living on the farm. I didn't want to know anything about farming. But I was put into this farming class in school. The boys from the town learned shop, electrician, brickwork, plumbing, that kind of stuff. So anyway, as a farmer, I had the idea like, wait a minute, I saw this book about turkey living. So I got the book and I started reading it about growing turkeys. So I asked my grandmother about getting some turkey eggs from another farmer from a distance that we had in the neighborhood, that it was a good idea. So I was the first person in my school ever to start to raising turkeys and sell them to my school teachers. Every year, all of my school teachers got turkeys for Thanksgiving, fresh turkeys from me. I had that entrepreneur mentality because, like I said before, on this farm, as work ethics, we had walnuts and different things we could pick up and pick berries and stuff, take them to the market, and the money we got was ours, even though we wasn't allowed to spend but so much, but it was still our money. And as long as you spend it something right, like clothing or some food, we wasn't allowed to buy a lot of junk like kids do today. They spend $4 or $5 in junk food. We couldn't do that. We had to save it or spend a little bit. If you want some candy or something, you could only spend a little bit of money and then save the rest or buy some clothes. So that was a good thing too. But anyway, as we learn to become more and more as an entrepreneur and time go by, next thing I found out or heard that my father was killed. Now here it is, this man, I didn't even know the man that much because, like I say, he and my mother separated a long time ago. Now here, my father, I think I maybe remembered him about 4 or 5 times in life. But one thing about my father that I did know is that I saw him one time when they were putting electricity in the area, in the rural areas where I lived. There he was on the pole, a lineman, a black man up on the pole rather than a black man digging a hole and putting the pole in the hole, but he was on the line stringing the wire. Wow, that was my father. That's my daddy, y'all. So therefore, that was a wonderful thing. And then another time, they had a little fair, a carnival, not a fair carnival, but like a school fair in the neighborhood, in the county, like a county fair. And I had a blue ribbon because my father made some toys. He made a barn, wagon, animals, and put them all around, and it was so beautiful and everything was working. This man was an artist. This man was an artist, and I didn't know anything about him being that type of an artist or having that artistical ability, but I remember I used to try to draw and different things, and it was something about that, but it never was put out or transformed into us. So therefore, that was my father. Now he's gone. Next thing you know, I'm living in Detroit with my mother and stepfather. Very seldom did I know my mother because when she came home, it was like, "Hey mom, how you doing? How you guys doing? Okay, good." That was it. But my grandmother and my grandfather, the one that really raised us, they had the hands-on connection with us, and I mean hands-on and everything. So therefore, I'm living with my mother and stepfather, people I don't know, and it was a little devastating. The next thing I know, that I was in Detroit, no job, trying to get into University of Detroit and not passing the college entrance exam. So what happens when you don't have any money? You start to hustling, you start to doing crazy stuff. Next thing you know, I am a teenage alcoholic, because now all I hear is the arguing, the fussing, people doing this, people doing that, and drinking, because I got my little Social Security money now, and all I did was drinking it up. So that was devastating. So I tried to get my act together, going to church, shining shoes, having a little entrepreneurial. They let me have my own shoe shine stand, money I made. But what I do with the money I made, drink it up, go out and party, doing those same crazy things. So next thing you know, I am back going to Bridgeport, Connecticut. And Bridgeport, I didn't like it. So next thing, I joined the service. And joining the service, like they teach you these wonderful skills in the Cold War and during the Vietnam era type thing. And you learn these things about how to do things, because now we're going into the computer tape age. They had the punch card thing. To learn how to do that, you learn inventory control, keeping the parts and all this things together so that the mechanic would always know what part to order. You had to know more about the plane than actually the pilot did, because thousands and thousands of parts, and you had to know where to go to get the part. You had to know what the part to get, all of this good stuff that you had to be able to do to keep those planes in the air, to get the parts to the mechanics and get the parts to the pilots, whoever was needing it. So now, after service, I come home, not getting the job that I was trained to do with the companies that I used to deal with. Now that was devastating. That was really, really hard. The next thing you know, I am in a cooking class, Culinary Institute in New Haven, and the United States Department of Education, under President Johnson, started a program to train American chefs, because the European chefs didn't want to come to America anymore, because they were staying in Europe, because people were going to Europe and having a vacation there, and they were staying in Europe. So now we need a shortage of American cooks. So I was in the second class, and we learned how to do all this fancy cooking and stuff. And yes, by me doing the best I can, doing better than just average, not getting by, I push myself to learn more, push myself to learn how to cook better, doing good things. So the next thing you know, I was in the catering business. Yes, in the catering business. My uncle that worked in Westport, Connecticut, asked me to do a party one time, asked me to help him really to do a party. And we was at this house of David Susskind. He had a dinner party, and lo and behold, Michael Jones was doing the main meal. Doing the main meal, I burnt the man's foods. The main dish. Wow. Now I'm devastated, because now it's time to serve. The food is scorched. What you gonna do? I had to rely on things that I've tried to learn, what works, what don't work, and sure enough, pull it through, pull it off. Wow. My uncle was upset, but it worked out. So those were some of the things that happened in my life, whereas, how you say, it wasn't me, it was somebody that was watching over me and helping me, because of the way that I pushed, the way that things worked out for me, the way that things were transparent for me. So also, as working at Bloomingdale's department store, I ran into Julia Childs. Every time she had a cookbook, she would come to Bloomingdale's in Connecticut and demonstrate a dish or something. So she had picked a couple of the cooks, and I was one of them. So, and that was a wonderful thing too. So other than that, I had many trophies, but I wasn't the type of person that sought after trophies. I just won trophies because of the fact that what I did it because it was the best I could do, always putting first, always trying to do better first. And I won trophies that must have been about 8 or 9 trophies in my life. And believe it or not, I only have 3 trophies in my house. That is something to think about. 3 trophies out of maybe 8 or 9. So that means that I didn't glory after trophies. I got them, good, so what? It wasn't the pride thing. But anyway, moving on. After working in some of the better places, doing some of the hotels, restaurants, country clubs, working here and there, because I always wanted to do better and learn different styles of cooking, different cuisines. I would work at a place maybe a year or 6 months, and I would just get another job. Didn't matter to me, because I just wanted to learn more and more about the type of cooking that was available in the different restaurants. So that was good. So anyway, moving on, I started doing, like I say, catering. And doing this catering, it was Jade East Catering. And then I went into Jade East Distributors. I had branded myself before I even knew what branding was. I didn't even know what the concept of branding or knowing. And today, I still get magazines with Jade East Catering after 30 years. I go to places and they say, "Oh, Jade East, how you doing?" You know, it's like, wow. But this is how we must learn to carry ourselves. But anyway, after a while, I started to get magazine, business magazine. I wanted to be like in my own business. When I was doing import-export distributors with merchandising, giftware, that type of items, jewelry, fur coats, different things, I was doing it. So, in order to do these things, you have to learn business. So in learning business, I joined the Chamber of Commerce. Next thing you know, I joined this group called the Round Table, the President's Round Table. This was the time when President Reagan was in office, and they called it the President's Round Table. I had the opportunity or the invitation to come to the White House for dinner with the President. But here I am, being fearful, I guess, being afraid. What they gonna say? Can I really hold up to this point? Will people say something to me? Am I going to be able to stand up to criticism and what people going to be asking me, and where you work, what you do? Because these are some of the things that has happened before in some of the other meetings that I did attend as JD's and JD's distributor. How people come up to you, do you have a car, or where you work, where you live, what kind of business you have, yada yada yada. Because here it is, big organizations with all of these top executives, and it is, I would say, young man about 30 years old. Here I am there. It's like, what this guy doing here? He should be the busboy or cleanup man or something like that, but here he is, and these executives wants to know what you're doing, and yes, that was a point back in those days, whereas you thought about these things, the wisdom, saying, no, maybe I back off a little bit. So I didn't go to the dinner with the president. But anyway, I lost one of the big jobs I had. The next thing I know, I was at a soup kitchen. Never knew what a soup kitchen was or looked like. So in the soup kitchen, I went from a top dollar to almost a no dollar, but it was better than nothing. After 2 years of being out of work and no work, I was there, and it was a wonderful experience, but I had to get adjusted to it. And being adjusted to not having any money and then working in different type of an environment. So one day, a gentleman went through the line, and he came back, and the man was crying. The man actually had tears coming down his face, and he wanted a napkin to clean his face with a paper towel or something. And the person on the line was asking what was wrong. And he was saying that about the food. Now I'm getting scared now, like, whoa, what's going on with the food? But the man was saying that the food reminded him of his mother. He was a man from one of the Baltic states. I think it was Poland or Yugoslavia, one of those. And it reminded him of his mother's cooking. Now it began to settle with me as to my destiny. I went to school, learned how to be a top cook, a top chef, to come to work in a soup kitchen, to prepare food for homeless, to prepare for food for people who never experienced this type of eating or cooking before, but to do the best you can with the meals that you have. How to take a little something and make a dish out of it and make it work. And that is something that it was like beyond my imagination, beyond my comprehension at the time. But it worked because this man was one of the few people, that came back and said, it was delicious, it was good, thank you. And yes, I appreciate it. And some of the volunteers that worked at the soup kitchen along with me was my mentors. They helped me. They talked with me. A lot of things that I didn't understand about this, how you know, socialism, how to get along with people, how to do this, do that, the other, because I'm still have these dark sides of my life and everything. Doing this, doing that, just like messing up David Susskind's food. I'm drinking, and no business drinking, but I did, and that's what happens when you're doing things you ain't no business doing. So anyway, and I had this one lady. She was up in her 90s, and every year she would bake me a chocolate cake because she knew I loved chocolate. Up until she was in her late 90s. The lady was almost 100 before she passed, and a year before she passed, she couldn't bring me any cake. So, and I was like, it was so wonderful to know, and I really appreciated the effort and appreciate what people have done for me throughout the years, I'm telling you. So as I've been putting this together and thinking about how we should need to get together to heal the community, to get together as a part of being a one accord in the community, something came to me about some stories, and I would like to share 2 stories with you before I leave. And these are coming from some of the books that I wrote, some short reads. They're on Amazon Kindle ebooks, and one of them came from one of the books that I had. It's like the power to overcome the fear of failure, and another one came from Thinking Determines Your Destiny. And the book from the power to overcome the fear of failure is telling the story of David and Goliath. Now, the Israelites was on one side of a little river or creek, a branch, or however you want to call it, and the Philistines were on the other side, and they had a giant of a man called Goliath. And Goliath would every day, the Philistine army would come down and taunt the Israelites, threaten them, brag, boast, and challenge them. And then one day, the king of the Israelites says that if anybody will go up and kill this man, tackle this man, overcome this man, I will let him have my daughter, and he can live in the palace and give a big reward. And as David came along as the shepherd boy to see his brothers, he was hearing these stories that were circulating in the ranks. And he said, well, I'll do it. And his brothers got on him about it, ragged him about, like, get out of here, you know what I mean? But anyway, he said, sure, I will get him, because he's no more to me than a lion and a bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine can fight.